In this video, I'm going to try and answer a simple question. Is the Superblast 3 an upgrade from the Superblast 2? Okay, so first off, both shoes have a very similar stack, except with the Superblast 3, we have more stack height. This is 45 millimeters in the back and 37 millimeters in the front, giving an 8 millimeter drop. The Superblast 3 also has an 8 millimeter drop, just like the 2, except we have more stack. We now have 46.5 millimeters at the back and 38.5 millimeters in the front, still giving that 8 millimeter drop. So we now have more stack. We have more foam. That's one change. And this is going to be a more protective shoe. Superblast 2 was a very protective shoe, great for long runs. The Superblast 3 is even more protective than the 2, so that is an upgrade. Now, in terms of the foam, we have this foam compound at the bottom. The same foam compound, the FF Blast Plus, is common to both shoes, the FF Blast Plus. The difference is, you can see in the Superblast 3, we have the thin layer at the bottom of the shoe. But if we go into the medial side of the shoe, then we're going to see something interesting. We see that this foam kind of goes up. There's a big chunk of it that goes up on the medial side of the shoe. So we have this new medial wedge of the foam on the inside. And why is that? Well, it's because now we have this big, giant chunk of FF Leap. Now, what is similar between these shoes, making it still the Superblast, is the fact that just like when the Superblast 2 came out, the FF Turbo Plus was the premium elite racing foam of the day. And the FF Leap, the Flight Foam Leap Foam, is today's premium fast racing foam. So it's just an update. And this is a very, very responsive foam. But unlike the FF Turbo Plus of the Superblast 2, the FF Leap is a much softer foam. You can feel it right away. This is a much softer, squashy kind of foam. You can feel it. So there's a big difference in the softness. So that means the step-in feel between the shoes is going to be very different. This is going to be comfortable and there's a softness to it, but it's a very, very firm shoe all round. Whereas your foot will sink into this FF Leap, giving it a very soft, plush feeling. So there's an increase in comfort, an increase in softness in the Superblast 3, which I think is an upgrade, but there's a problem. There's one thing that you lose. It's at the expense of snappiness. Because of the firmness of the shoe, if you like that snappy feel, you lose that snappy feel with the Superblast 3. And this is going to upset people. If you really need that snappy feel, you are losing that. And if that's a deal breaker for you, then the Superblast 3 is not for you. But I argue that this is still a Superblast because of that bottom layer. It's still a very stiff shoe because of that bottom layer of the FF Blast Plus. It's got that same shell, making it a very stiff shoe, so you can still get a really good stiffness out of the shoe. Just the underfoot experience is different. The fact that this is the same shoe but feels so different is going to blow people's minds. They're going to think it's a different shoe. But no, functionally, it's actually very similar. You still have a very stable, supportive, stiff shoe, but because of the softness, there's going to be a little bit of a sensation of wobbliness around the corners because your foot's going to kind of sink into the FF Leap, so you will lose a little bit of stability compared to the Superblast 2. That said, this is still a very stable shoe considering the stack height. Now, amazingly, despite the fact that you have more stack in the Superblast 3, this is a substantially lighter shoe. Now, this is half a size bigger, the Superblast 2, than my Superblast 3 year. I have a US 12.5 year and a US 12 year. And this US 12, so it's not apples to apples, but this US 12.5 was 297 grams. And this US 12 is only 266 grams. It's substantially lighter. You can really feel the lightness of the shoe. So you have a lighter shoe despite more stack. So lower mass, check. Okay, so we have a more protective shoe, we have a lower mass shoe, we have a more comfortable shoe, but a less snappy shoe. Still the Superblast, but that in-foot feel is going to be different. And because you're losing the snappiness, a lot of people might think, no, this is not the Superblast. The Superblast has to be snappy. but it still has the functional snappiness. Functionally, it's still a snappy shoe. It just doesn't feel as snappy. That's what's interesting about the shoe. Now, with the Mega Blast, you have a very snappy feeling. It's softer than the Superblast 2. If you really want snappy, go with the Sonic Blast, which I actually love as well. I think it's a fantastic snappy shoe. I love snappy shoes. But with the Superblast 3 compared to the Mega Blast is softer than the Superblast 2, and you have a snappiness. But initially, I found that bounciness to be a little bit too bouncy, a little bit chaotic. It's kind of broken in now, the Mega Blast has, and I'm finding it, I just took it for a run yesterday, and I'm finding it a bit more consistent. But with this shoe, because of this bottom layer, you get this consistent propulsion, this consistent responsiveness. Now, it doesn't have the same immediacy of bounce as something as snappy as the Superblast 2 and the Mega Blast. Indeed, the Mega Blast is very immediate. But what happens with this shoe is once you get it up to speed, it just sings at a really fast pace very comfortably. It's a more responsive shoe than the Superblast 2. It's absolutely a more efficient shoe. So this shoe, faster, more efficient, marathon pace in your long run is going to work beautifully in this shoe. This shoe can go really fast. It just doesn't have that snap. If you want to snap, then you're going to be disappointed. But if you land on the bounce pod, right, or the trampoline pod over here, or you roll onto it and you really get going and you get the shoe singing, this shoe is a fast shoe. You can feel the energy coming back from the shoe. So energy return, increase, yes, it's a faster shoe. So far, this shoe is definitely an upgrade in almost every way. What about the upper? Okay, this upper, you got a new lacing system. I actually think this shoe wraps around my foot a little bit better than the Superblast 2. It locks a little bit better. I find the lacing, the lockdown, the heel collar, all of that to be a little bit better. This material is nice, but I kind of think I think this material on the Superblast 2 is a bit stretchier, maybe that feels that way to me than the Superblast 3. So I actually think I might prefer the material on the Superblast 2, and I feel that the toe box is a bit higher on the Superblast 2. Now, I have these big toes, these abnormally large toes, and a low toe box is a problem for me. And I've been feeling a bit of toe rub in the Superblast 3. I don't get that in the Superblast 2. I also understand there's a half size difference, but I have the Nova Blast with 5 and the same size as this with the jacquard mesh, and I don't get the same problem. So it's not the size, having run with the Nova Blast so much. It's this upper, the toe box height is not quite as much. It's a little bit lower. And this material is great. It's comfortable. It's way less abrasive than the Mega Blast. So it's still a really good material. But I find the Superblast 2 seems a bit stretchier and a bit more breathable than the Superblast 3. Though the lockdown and the comfort on the 3 is better than the 2. So it's a mixed bag with the upper. Which one's better? Mixed bag. Let's call it an even. Okay. And then what about the outsole? Now, interesting. Outsole. Now this is, I said so many times that this FF Turbo Plus is the same material, but I find that while the grip on the Superblast 3 is fantastic, the Superblast 2 is fantastic too. There may be a slight improvement with the grip on the 3 compared to the 2. I would believe that because this grip is fantastic. I can't move the shoe. So full marks for grip. I think the grip is probably better. I'm going to give it a check, but I think this FF Turbo, as stiff as it is, I think it might be a bit softer and a bit less durable than the version that we had on the Superblast 2, because I've seen some scuffing on the shoe, on my other shoe already, when it took way longer to have any scuffing on the Superblast 2 than the 3. So the outsole material, the grip, I would say is probably better, very durable. It's probably going to be very durable, but this, I think this actual bottom layer might be a little bit less durable than the 2. Both shoes are going to be fantastically durable. So I'm going to give the 3 an upgrade check for grip. And for durability, it's to be seen. But I'm going to guess, and this is just a guess, that they're going to be probably even for durability. Maybe even the 2 might be better. We'll see. We have to wait. I've only done 100 kilometers in the Superblast 3. I've done close to 600 in this pair, my second pair of Superblast 2. My other pair I got over 1,000. So we'll see. Okay, so all these things considered, the Superblast 3, we have a faster shoe We have a more comfortable shoe. We have a softer shoe. We still have a stiff structure. We still have the formula of FF Blast Plus, and then the premium race foam on top in both shoes. It's still Superblast, but the step-in feel and the underfoot experience on the 3 is very different to the 2. You lose snappiness, but you actually gain efficiency, you gain speed, and you gain comfort. Though there's going to be a little bit less room for the toes in the 3 compared to the 2. Overall, the 3 is absolutely an upgrade over the 2. I love both of these shoes.